How do you conquer the world's most powerful, most fortified city without a single drop of blood being shed in battle? It sounds impossible, a myth from a forgotten age. Yet, in 539 BC, this is exactly what happened. The story of how Babylon, the jewel of the ancient world, fell not to swords and siege engines, but to a brilliant strategy and a revolutionary idea. To understand this incredible event, we must first look at the Neo-Babylonian Empire in the 6th century BC. This was the empire of legends, ruled from the largest and most magnificent city on earth. Babylon's defenses were legendary. Its outer walls were said to be so thick that a four-horse chariot could race along the top. Inside, the city was a marvel of architecture and power. The mighty Euphrates River flowed directly through the heart of the city, not only providing water, but also forming a natural part of its complex defenses, with massive water gates protecting it. But within these impenetrable walls, the empire was rotting from the inside. Its king, Nabonidus, was deeply unpopular. He was a religious eccentric, obsessed with the moon god's sin. This was a grave insult to the powerful priests of Marduk, Babylon's chief deity. Nabonidus spent years away from his capital, leaving governance to his son, Belshazzar, further alienating his people. The Babylonian people felt abandoned by their king and their primary god Marduk. This discontent created a powder keg of resentment, just waiting for a spark from the outside. That spark had a name: Cyrus. From the small kingdom of Anshan, Cyrus the Great had forged the Achaemenid Empire, a Persian powerhouse that was swallowing kingdoms whole. He'd conquered the mighty Medes and the fabulously wealthy Lydians. By 540 BC, his gaze was fixed on the greatest prize of all, Babylon. But Cyrus was different from other conquerors of his time. He built his empire not just on military might, but on a reputation for mercy and respect for local customs and religions. Instead of razing cities and slaughtering their inhabitants, he presented himself as a liberator. This was more than kindness, it was a devastatingly effective psychological weapon. As his armies approached Babylonia, he sent agents ahead, spreading propaganda. He promised to restore the worship of Marduk and end the tyranny of Nabonidus. He was no longer just a foreign invader, he was positioning himself as the chosen champion of the Babylonian people's own god, here to restore divine order. In the autumn of 539 BC, the stage was set. The Persian army, a disciplined and multi-ethnic force, marched into the Babylonian heartland. The first major confrontation occurred at the city of Apis. Here, the Babylonian army made its stand, but was decisively crushed by the Persians, leaving the road to Babylon wide open. Following this victory, the city of Sippar surrendered without a fight. Nabonidus, realizing the end was near, fled back to the capital, taking refuge behind its supposedly inconquerable walls. Confident in their city's defenses and vast food supplies, the Babylonians believed they could withstand any siege for years. The city prepared for a long, drawn-out conflict. Cyrus and his general Gobryas arrived at the gates of Babylon and assessed the situation. A direct assault would be suicidal, and a lengthy siege would be costly. They needed another way in. The solution lay in the very feature that gave Babylon life: the Euphrates River. Cyrus devised a plan so audacious, so brilliantly simple, it has echoed through military history for centuries. His engineers began work upstream, digging massive canals and trenches to divert the flow of the mighty river away from its natural channel. The goal was to lower the water level dramatically. The Persians chose their moment perfectly. They learned that a great religious festival was to be held in Babylon. The entire city would be distracted by celebration, feasting, and wine. As the city reveled, the Persian engineers broke the dikes. The Euphrates River began to drain into the newly dug basin, its level within the city dropping hour by hour. The river, once a formidable barrier, was becoming a pathway. The water level fell until it was only thigh-deep, exposing the riverbed and the giant water gates that were now useless. Under the cover of darkness and the sounds of the city's festivities, columns of elite Persian soldiers slipped down the muddy riverbanks and into the shallow water. They were the ghosts at the feast. The city celebrated, completely unaware that an enemy army was now walking, not swimming, directly into its very heart. The moment of truth had arrived. The Persian soldiers waded silently through the murky water, their hands on their weapons, moving under the massive bronze gates that were now high above the river surface. In a stroke of luck, or perhaps a sign of internal betrayal, the inner gates leading from the riverbank into the city streets had been left unlatched. The path was clear. Spreading out, the soldiers secured key points with swift, silent precision. There was no grand battle, no clash of armies at the gates. The war for Babylon was being won in near silence. The citizens of Babylon woke from their drunken celebrations not to the sound of trumpets, but to the sight of Persian soldiers standing guard on their street corners. The shock must have been absolute. The invincible city had fallen without a fight. The great king Nabonidus was captured, and his son Belshazzar was killed in the confusion. Babylon, the queen of cities, the terror of nations for nearly a century, had been conquered. Cyrus the Great had achieved the impossible. On October 29, 539 BC, 17 days after his army took the city, Cyrus himself made his grand entrance. But it was an entrance unlike any other conquerors. There was no victory parade of shackled slaves, no burning of temples, no widespread looting. Instead, he rode in as a peacemaker, welcomed by the priests of Marduk and the weary populace. He issued a proclamation of peace, forbidding his soldiers from terrorizing the population. He had conquered the city, and now he intended to conquer its people's minds and hearts. In the aftermath, Cyrus issued a decree that would change the world. It wasn't written on papyrus, but inscribed in cuneiform script on a small barrel made of clay. We know it today as the Cyrus Cylinder. Buried in the foundations of Babylon for 2.5 millennia, it is now considered by many to be the world's first charter of human rights. The cylinder declared that all peoples within the new Persian Empire were free to worship their own gods. It abolished slavery and forced labor, stating all people had a right to be paid for their work. Most famously, it allowed deported peoples to return to their homelands. This included the Jewish people who had been held in the Babylonian captivity for decades, allowing them to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. Cyrus's policy was revolutionary. It created a stable, multicultural empire built not on fear, but on a foundation of tolerance and mutual respect, a model that would endure for centuries. The Cyrus Cylinder was lost to history until it was rediscovered by archaeologists in 1879. Today, its text is inscribed at the headquarters of the United Nations as a symbol of universal human rights. It's a shocking testament to how an ancient king's act of political genius laid the groundwork for ideas we still fight for today. It makes you wonder, was Cyrus the Great a true humanitarian, a man far ahead of his time, or was this simply the most sophisticated and effective case of political propaganda the ancient world had ever seen? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story of conquest and compassion fascinating, please like, subscribe, and share.